Hello, my name is Chris Byrie, and I am participating in a book review from Madison Area Technical College for the course Environmental Science. The professor of this class is Robert Lovely, and the nonfiction book I chose to read is The Uninhabitable Earth. This book was written by an American journalist, David Wallace Wells, and was published by Tim Duggan's Books in the year 2019. The author, David Wallace Wells, is currently a deputy editor and columnist at New York Magazine. Unlike many other climate authors who devote years and sometimes their lives to the study of the earth and environment, Wells is quite the opposite. In a Q&A session on politics and prose, Wells states, "I am not an environmentalist. I am someone who has lived their entire life in New York City and felt that I was living outside of nature." He goes on to explain that climatic disasters during this time seem to be more detrimental and frequent than in years past, which prompted him to get more involved in the study of our environment. Although he lives in an urban area with little to no biodiversity, he developed a passion in the Earth's climate patterns. This passion led to Wells authoring a comprehensive New York Times best-selling book that I will be dissecting here today. The issue of climate change is an extremely prominent and well-known issue that affects us all. While many would agree that climate change is a serious concern, few individuals know the true harm that may fall upon us if changes are not made. Wells's book seeks to provide an insight on the harm humans are doing and what consequences these actions may have on the lives of us and all other species on the planet. As mentioned, the overarching theme of this book is climate change and its drastic effects on our not-so-distant future. However, there are many subtopics that aid in explaining the reasoning behind Earth's temperature rising. 4 main sections make up this book, with the first section being an immediate introduction to the looming danger of climate change. Wells grabs the reader's attention by incorporating a myriad amount of supported facts about our planet. For example, since the Industrial Revolution, the Earth has warmed by 1 degree Celsius. When I first heard that number, I felt relieved, and that given the fact that the Industrial Revolution happened a couple hundred years ago, this, to me, did not seem too problematic. However, upon reading further and learning that this human-induced warming occurred faster than any other warming period in the last several million years, I was astonished, to say the least. Wells drills this point by saying, "The slowness of climate change is a fairy tale, perhaps as pernicious as the one that says it isn't happening at all." Wells's continuous displays on human overconsumption, backed by extensive scientific research throughout this section, sets a grim reality for our future that I was beginning to now realize. Section 2, which is the lengthiest and most comprehensive portion of the book, builds upon the facts presented in Section 1 and their direct consequences for the future. Entitled The Books of Chaos, this 12-chapter portion is exactly as the name describes. These chapters exemplify hyper-specific predictions, such as deadly heat waves, catastrophic oceanic disasters, highly polluted air, and water shortages, just to name a few, all of which are acting as a result of our actions. It is in this portion of the book where data and studies become a reality, regardless of where you live. This section's main goal is to educate the reader on the incredible reach and connection that the rising global climate has. Section 3, while more condensed than Section 2, strays away from the environmental impact and changes of the ever-rising climate and focuses its attention on impacts various cultures and societies will face. One such historic societal impact that Wells makes note of is the Syrian civil war. This bloody internal conflict resulted in hundreds of thousands of deaths. One of the main causes of this war was due to a dramatic climatic event, more specifically, a historical and detrimental drought. The Syrian civil war is a disturbing yet appropriate example of how environmental issues can accelerate and even be the catalyst to civil unrest. Also, climate change is expensive. Not only is there a serious mental toll that takes place, but you also have to factor in the cost. Cities and its citizens are left dealing with the rubble of their once standing homes, businesses, and community centers. The destruction from hurricanes and tornadoes, for example, can cause billions and billions of dollars in damage. The author, Wells, realizes this and raises a question. How will the attitudes of capitalism be affected, and what changes will be made to offset the damage caused by climate change? Section 4, which is the final part of the book, takes a look at the anthropic principle. This principle implies that humans are pre-wired to take a narcissistic approach in terms of the issue of climate change. In his book, Wells says, "Of course we did it to ourselves. We had always been intellectually lazy, and the less asked of us, the less we had to say." It is here, in the closing chapters of the book, does Wells explain how humans inherently take an agnostic approach when dealing with climate change. I believe that The Uninhabitable Earth does an excellent job at bluntly explaining climate change and its consequences. The author does not sugarcoat nor dumb down the material he presents within the book. There is a sense of urgency and panic the author makes you feel. It is almost as if he is writing a fictional novel about a post-apocalyptic world. However, this is not the case. This is the future of our world, and some of us will be old enough to see these predictions come to light firsthand. Our kids, grandkids, and generations after will be forced to deal with unprecedented events brought on by climate change. Wells does a great job at constantly instilling this feeling within the reader. I believe the reason this book was written is because it is a wake-up call for everyone in our society to realize that the decisions regarding our Earth that we make today will potentially have catastrophic effects on the not-so-distant future. So, it is my opinion that there is no target audience that this book was written for, because it was composed to educate anyone and everyone for the betterment of our society and Earth. I thoroughly enjoyed reading and dissecting this book. I learned a ton of information and also gained more respect for the environment. I, like many others, have heard the phrase climate change many times throughout my life, but never paid much mind to what the true danger of climate change is. However, when I began to realize that the Earth's warming impacts not only our climate, but our oceans, air, water supply, can also be a major driving factor in civil unrest and disputes, I became a firm believer in climate change. So in a sense, yes, this book had an effect on my previous ideas. However, this book more reaffirmed my suspicions and concerns in a way that I did not expect. I would definitely recommend this book to others. I would especially recommend this book to those that claim climate change is not concerning or does not exist. After reading this book and doing more research myself, I think this book can be an eye-opening experience for many others, especially with differing viewpoints. Thank you.